It is Brooklyn Strong who's giving chase in second. 10 for 10 with the lead into the lane with 3/16 to the finish. But here is Brooklyn Strong up on the outside to challenge. 10 for 10 on the inside and Brooklyn Strong on the outside. And the two of them are heads apart for the lead with a 16 to the finish. Brooklyn Strong, 10 for 10. Brooklyn Strong and 10 for 10 battled it out to the finish. And it is the New York bred Brooklyn Strong to win Aqueduct's Remsen Stakes.
Welcome back to the final Kentucky Derby profile here on Racing Rundown. Today we're talking about the number 20 horse, Brooklyn Strong, the winner of the Remsen Stakes from last year at Aqueduct. And this is a horse who, for even up to the beginning of last week, it did not look like this horse was going to be even considered for the Kentucky Derby, with him very much well down on the score chart. He had been pointing to the Preakness. It was all said and done. And then some horses dropped out, and it eventually fell that he got enough points to get into the Kentucky Derby. So the owners decided that since they have the points, going to send him to the Kentucky Derby. And I think that, considering what some of the other options would be for a 20th horse, I think having Brooklyn Strong in the Kentucky Derby is a very good thing. Because this is a horse who was kind of derailed by injury in the early part of 2021. He was supposed to make a start in the Withers at Aqueduct. That wasn't able to happen because of injury, so he had to wait until the Wood Memorial. Only has one start going into this Kentucky Derby, which is a little bit concerning for me. I would hold the same opinion about him going into this race as I would for King Fury, who I talked about last time. I'll briefly recap that. In modern Kentucky Derby history, so what I'm using to define as modern Kentucky Derby history is going back to 1955, which is when the official Derby website can verify this statistic too. No horses won the Kentucky Derby with only one prior start at 3. So that's not something that I am very comfortable with. But, looking at some of the positives with Brooklyn Strong, this is another horse who experience is by no means a question for him. As I mentioned, this horse is a graded stakes winner and a stakes winner in New York bred company. So 2 nice stakes wins for him in his career. And you look at his run last out in the Wood Memorial. That wasn't a bad race, considering what he had to go through. He was stuck on the inside, and the chart says he was trapped inside. You go back and you look at that race. There were horses all around him. I think if he had had a better trip in that race, he could have run a lot better. I don't think he was going to run a race where he could have won or had run second. I think that the 2 Pletcher horses were going to win that race regardless of what happened. But you look at the trip that Brooklyn Strong had in the race, obviously very problematic, and I think he's better than that 5th place effort in this race. But if you go back and you look at his run in the Remsen, which is obviously his best career performance, and he only won by a neck against 10 for 10, but 10 for 10 has not yet started this year, but I think 10 for 10, he was a nice 2-year-old, and I think when Shug McGahee eventually gets him back going, he's obviously not going to make the Kentucky Derby and has not worked since that Remsen race. I think that if 10 for 10 eventually does get back to the track, he was a nice horse. I think he can continue to run some good races. So beating 10 for 10 in a narrow victory like that showed that he had some fight in him, and he finished ahead of Known Agenda, who wasn't the Known Agenda that he is now. It wasn't the Florida Derby winning Known Agenda, but still, finishing ahead of a horse who went on to win a Grade 1 race is definitely not something to slight the horse for. And, going back to the Sleepy Hollow, which is his New York bred stake win. That was against a pretty decent group of New York breds. Eagle Orb's not a terrible New York bred. Hold the Salsa won the only race that Brooklyn Strong had lost prior to the Remsen Stakes, and that was another New York bred stakes where Hold the Salsa won that race and Brooklyn Strong was 3rd in there. So this is a horse who's a hard trier. And going back to the Remsen from last December, that was a race where Brooklyn Strong really showed a lot of character that he had in him. He obviously showed that he was able to fight, but the other thing about that was over a very, very poor surface, and he was able to run 1 mile and 1/8 in that race in 1 minute 50.60 seconds. Some other notable races from that day would be the Demoiselle, which was the race that Malathot won as a 2-year-old. That was her first graded stakes win as a 2-year-old filly. And on this program, we called Malathot the best 2-year-old filly in the country, better than at the time VQuest, better than at the time Travel Calm. We still stand by that very much so, especially with that last race that Malathot had. But on a weekend where we called the female who won the Demoiselle over that same surface the best filly in the country at the time, Brooklyn Strong won the same distance race, the Remsen, also a mile and an eighth, same as the Demoiselle, over the same surface. He ran just under 2 seconds faster than her. His final time was 1 minute 50.60, and Malathot's time was 1:52.36. So just under 2 seconds faster than Malathot did. That means something. And I think that's why you can't completely write off Brooklyn Strong, because this is a horse who, he had two things going against him in the Wood Memorial. It was off the layoff, and he was trapped inside. I think that, if he had a start underneath him, absolutely. I had said this too. I'm not sure whether or not I said this on air or not, but I had been talking to my co-host, Eric, who's done some of the other Derby profiles, that if he had had a race underneath him, I would have absolutely picked him in the Wood Memorial. And I think that's why you can't completely dismiss him in this Kentucky Derby, because he is a good horse. He's a hard trier. You look at that Remsen win, that was a really good race for a 2-year-old stake. So I think that you can absolutely count him as a legitimate threat in this Kentucky Derby. The Remsen, I think, is too good to ignore him completely, and there were a couple of major excuses for him in the Wood Memorial. Off the layoff, and he was trapped inside. So if he gets a advantageous trip, I don't think that he's a horse that you can completely cross out in this Kentucky Derby. I will certainly be giving him some strong consideration. And with all that being mentioned, this is the final profile for the 2021 Kentucky Derby. We will have 2 more videos of Racing Rundown prior to the Kentucky Derby. The first one will be when Eric and I come together and we do our monster Kentucky Derby profile, where we run through, preview, where we run through every single horse, and we eventually give our picks for this. And also, Jay Priven of the Daily Racing Forum will be joining us on Derby week as well to talk about the Kentucky Derby. So 2 more Kentucky Derby videos coming up, and we're obviously going to be talking about everything Kentucky Derby week over on our podcast. So make sure to check all that out. We'll see you for those videos. And if you haven't already, check out some of our other Derby previews. Have a good one.
7 seconds, and now the field comes into the stretch. Eagle Orb is all out down at the rail. On the outside it is Brooklyn Strong. Breadman is now back running in third, and they're inside the 8th pole. Eagle Orb on the inside, and Brooklyn Strong on the outside. Brooklyn Strong has now taken the lead. Eagle Orb is in second, and it will be Brooklyn Strong who finished strong to win the Sleepy Hollow.